Hey everybody, welcome to Beauty Inside and Out. We are well into summer and listen, summer is typically one of those months where you're hot, you're sweaty, you're not feeling good about yourself, you don't necessarily feel good at the end of the day. But today's conversation, and I had promised this to you last month, and I apologize that we weren't able to bring it to you last month, but we are definitely bringing it to you today, and it is going to be a very juicy conversation. And this juicy conversation is because of my guest that I've had the privilege and honor to be able to chat with for a few minutes and a few times over the course of the summer. Her entire role and existence is to be able to really cater to women and some of the issues that we're facing. And we're going to talk about a few of those today. So please welcome my guest, Susan Joyce. Susan, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Bonnie. I'm so glad.
You're so welcome. Now, I just want to let my listeners know, because I know that they were excited. I had done a little promo on you back in July, and we didn't have a chance to do that, both to circumstances that came up for both of us. So I was excited that we were able to reschedule and still get this on the calendar for summer, because I think this is the perfect time actually to be able to have us take a little step back and maybe look from the inside as to where we're at as women. And, you know, Susan, you have some amazing credentials, and I definitely want to get into some of those credentials, but I am constantly flabbergasted by our society where women still take the back seat sometimes. The women that step up get clawed at, and a lot of times we don't think we have a voice, or we're afraid to have that voice in the moment. And, you know, I understand that there's a lot of us out there that are trying to empower women and help us to be better. But I think some of the conversations and some of the things that you're up to can certainly help us get on the right path to be that powerful, driven woman that can have an impact and can make a difference, not only to her life, but the people that are in her life as well, and other women. Women. So you are the CEO of Get Your Juicy Back, and I know my listeners are already curious about what the heck is Get Your Juicy Back, and your passion towards women and your journey towards wellness and fulfillment and self-expression. And you said something early on that I want you to tap into here. And it was kind of what you talked about as a life force. So give us a little insight about you, all of the things, you know, I mean, we certainly don't have time for all of them we have accomplished, because you have a very long resume, but and a powerful resume at that. But give us a little insight as to how you rolled into this moment of saying that, you know, women were important in this life force and getting your juicy back.
Yeah, I'm going to give you that's the most succinct version of the story as I can. I'm actually a corporate refugee. I was a vice president of a bank for many years in New York. I have an MBA in finance. So came from a whole different world. Started doing yoga 30 some years ago, had to wake up, left that career, you know, decided that there was some contribution I was here to make, and I was going to go do it. Many years have gone by. I've accumulated amazing information and training and tools. And one of the things that I've studied and have been practicing for many years now is something called Ayurvedic medicine. It was popularized by Deepak Chopra here in the West, and is a sister science to yoga. And it's a beautiful system of holistic healing that has some powerful understanding about rejuvenation and about the life force. So fast forward, I've been developing all of this for a long time. And one of the observations that I made is that in our world, 50 is kind of a dividing line for women. So the average menopause age, where things really do change physiologically, but also culturally. Women up until the age of 50 are dreading the big 50, you know, because that has just historically been like an age that we were expecting to be over the hill. But these days, on the other side of 50, women are realizing, I feel great. I feel better than I ever had. That's sort of a myth. And I'm a baby boomer. I'm actually, I'll kind of share this. I'm 63 at this point, and very proud of that. You know, when I was young, 63 was old. And clearly that's not how I experienced myself. So I was sort of on this quest of, you know, how do we connect with that vitality that animates us? And where your juicy back came from, I'm just going to be very candid here. Several years ago, I was putting together my first online course, and my business coach said I had to send out a survey to my tribe to find out what their, pressing issues were. So I did that, and it came back that women over 50, their number one wellness complaint was vaginal dryness. And I thought that was great news because I've got wonderful solutions for that. And to your audience, I can say I have wonderful solutions for that. And if you go to my website, Get Your Juicy Back, you can download some of them that specifically address this topic. But I wanted to find a way to speak to that was not spammy and all of that. And a friend came up with the name Get Your Juicy Back. And we just all loved it.
Yeah.
Younger women don't seem to get it and men don't seem to get it, but women in my tribe do get it. But to answer your question, over the past few years of working with this, what I've come to recognize is that juice is that vitality, is that life force that we have. And actually, Ayurvedic medicine that I work with relies a lot on the Sanskrit language. And in Sanskrit, the word for juice is rasa. And it's a powerful word. It has to do with that life force that, created each of us from two little cells and that, knows how to heal us if we get a cut. And so it really helped to make me aware that to the extent that we can align with that life force, it's what does keep us young and vital and healthy. And my big why, which you sort of asked about as well, actually had to do with a quote that I heard almost 10 years ago. In 2009 at the Vancouver Peace Conference, the Dalai Lama was quoted as saying that the world is going to be saved by the Western woman. And I remember thinking at the time, well, I don't want to limit it to Western women, but realistically, we've been the most advantaged in terms of education and opportunity. I've felt for a long time that my generation, at this point, we were pioneers always, with the sexual revolution and coming into the workplace and, all of that stuff. We have so much to offer right now that if we were going to go down the trajectory that thought that we were old, we wouldn't be able to make this contribution that we've spent all these decades, developing ourselves to make. And so I felt that the greatest contribution I could make, frankly, to the healing of the world was to empower my generation of women with the tools to maintain that life force and that feeling good about ourselves so that we can fulfill on what you were speaking about. And actually, I think I answered your question.
You did.
I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do that succinctly, but I think I did.
It was beautiful because I see, and one of the things being a branding guide for a lot of people, I loved that you took something so simple as vaginal dryness to a phrase, get your juicy back, to it's not just about that part of us. It's about our entire existence, our entire being, and all the things that take the juice away from us.
Exactly.
And the things that give the juice back.
Exactly. And to me, I love the way you said that, because if we think of that as our criteria in life of making our choices, does this contribute to my juice or does it dry me out? That's probably going to be a very reliable barometer.
Oh, good. Yeah, I agree.
And I really like the way you said that. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
So that's the story in a nutshell.
Well, it's a great story. I love that you started out as a bank VP, but other than the Ayurvedic nutrition, you also specialize in neurolinguistic, clinical hypnotherapy, management of menopause type, which I think is obviously right, within that tribe of women that you're talking about, and blood type science, and all of those things that you have on there as some of your expertise and training is all very interesting, I think, for women our age, because we're trying to figure out how to delete stress or decrease it at least. And we're trying to figure out how to live fully. And at this point, I think a lot of women at 50, we start to gain access to our lives again. Our children are grown. And we might be in a more suitable position career-wise, and so then we're kind of looking like, well, what's next? What do we do?
Me time. So what is me all about, right?
Yeah, what am I all about? Because I've been all about a lot of other things and other people for a long time. So I see the evolution. and especially with all of those things that you're training. Tell me a little bit about the blood type science.
Well, that's my description. Probably many people know about that from Dr. Peter D'Adamo as Eat Right for Your Type.
Oh yeah, I loved that book.
What I'll say again, to be succinct here, Ayurvedic medicine is a beautiful form of holistic healing that identifies several different constitutional types that we each are. And I have found that to be terrifically illuminating for balance. And that's something I've been working with for many years. I've taught about Ayurveda at university level. It's just a beautiful science. But I always feel that we're almost like facets of a crystal. We have many different expressions. So our constitutional type in Ayurveda is just one facet. You know, our sun side in Western astrology is one facet, is another facet. And for my own well-being, because, you know, I was looking for my own solutions for prevention and well-being, didn't find them out in the world, you know, years ago. I found when I looked at the blood types along with the Ayurvedic constitutional types, the resulting archetypes that I developed, part of my own system, 3 constitutional types and the 4 blood types. I have 12 archetypes in my system. And the results that I've experienced from following my own program and the results I've seen in my clients has been fairly remarkable. And I never kind of found this anywhere else. So I'm very big on bio-individuality, you know, like understanding who, you know, for each of us to become balanced, we need to have an understanding of where we're starting. And that's not that prevalent in our culture. You know, people go to a doctor and everybody gets the same prescription. So I really delved into this and I developed this program that integrates the blood type science with the Ayurvedic wisdom, which is very ancient. And
I love that.
In fact, I was just sharing this with a new client yesterday, and she's an esthetician. She does a beautiful form of cold laser therapy that I'm enjoying. And she said, I've never come across this, you know, anything like this. I said, I never have either. I lived in Australia for several years. I still work with clients there. I've never seen this anywhere. And it does seem to be really, really effective for accomplishing something that you and I were chatting about a little bit before the show, which is that my observation is that the single biggest culprit that women face for their well-being and their appearance is the stress hormone cortisol. And my whole platform is about helping women to balance their cortisol and also their insulin from a nutritional perspective. Those 2 things I find will help us get into that alignment of vitality that allows the life force to do its job very, very well in terms of our well-being and our function.
Yeah. Give us a little bit more insight on, you know, on cortisol, because I know it's been referenced out there as the stress hormone, and then you've got other conversations and dialogues going on that reference cortisol, and those 2 are one and the same. And it's really a very damaging hormone that we don't want to keep dispersing into our system.
Absolutely. Okay. So let's talk about some of the really harmful aspects of it. One thing is that it interrupts our sleep. Not only does that affect quality of life because, you know, we're not happy walking around, you know, half asleep, but when we're sleep is the time that the body regenerates. So if we're not getting good quality sleep, we're aging prematurely. We're not giving our organs and tissues an opportunity to rejuvenate at night. So just that one thing alone would be a good enough reason to work with that. But I have an even more powerful one that very few people know about. Many know about the sleep thing, but I haven't even shared this one with you yet. So brace yourself.
Okay.
Many people assume that when women go through menopause, we stop producing the hormones that we need. You know, the estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, and that's why we have hot flashes and we lose bone and we age. And that's not the whole story, because what I discovered from working with my mentor, Dr. Joseph Collins, who trained me as a menopause specialist, we have what I call Mother Nature's backup plan. And Mother Nature's backup plan means that the way we were designed was that after menopause, when our ovaries are no longer pumping out all those hormones every month because we don't need to maintain that menstrual cycle, the adrenal glands were intended to pick up the slack. Now, what happens to most women these days at the age of 50, having had a stressed out life all of this time, and then start knocking on the door of the adrenal glands and saying, hi, we have a new job for you? The adrenal glands usually say, you know, you're out of luck. You know, I'm depleted. Can't do it. And so I understand that the reason that women have insufficient hormones later in life is not that we were built that way. That's not normal. That's not what was intended. It's that the stress and the excess cortisol that we've been pumping out has left the adrenal glands depleted and are also using up the precursors of nutrients that we would otherwise have available to make estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. They're being diverted to make cortisol.
Yeah.
People know about this. Very.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and that makes so much sense. I mean, just when you said that, it couldn't be a more logical statement that after the age of 50, our ovaries should say, hey, I'm going into retirement, but it shouldn't mean that we as women should be depleted at that point. So there has to be something else that kind of—
Mother Nature had a backup plan. And in modern life, many of us have not been able to access that, and hardly anybody knows about it. So even just knowing about it, I mean, I can see on your face, this is kind of an exciting idea. It's like,
yeah,
I'll do that. You know, how can I work with my adrenals to, you know, heal them and support them so that my life force can kick in? And that's what I've experienced. That's what I see happening with so many other women. And it's very exciting to me. So, you know, part of this, you know, you asked me about my big why. You know, I feel empowered to be making these contributions in the world.
That's so interesting. I mean, honestly, it's got me thinking now, because I'm like, yeah, that makes total sense. Why am I still kind of putting my ovaries in charge of doing something that their role is complete? Their role is complete. There's something else. And I totally, I can absolutely relate, because I did have adrenal fatigue for a while. Which contributed to, and again, this is not scientific fact. They don't have a lot of facts behind this, but it contributed to depression. It contributed to hair loss. It contributed to skin issues and rashes that I was having, because cortisol as a stress hormone puts you in fight flight.
Absolutely.
And when you go into that and it jumps into your body, it circulates through your body, and it circulates fast to be able to have you be in that emergency situation. But most of the situations today that we're dealing with are not considered life-threatening or incredibly dangerous. And if they are, you want cortisol in your system, cortisol. But if they're not, which most aren't, it's just daily stresses. It's traffic. It's, you know, breathing sometimes the crappy air that we breathe, depending on where we live. It's, you know, irritating people in our work environment, or sometimes family situations that aren't resolved. Sometimes those are the daily stresses that we live with, which produce the cortisol. And that's the part, which I'm hoping you can take us to here, Susan, is that's the part that we want to be able to figure out, how do we overcome that? How do we get past? Because, you know, I was 40 something, healthy, but my body was also changing biologically. They wanted to get me, they wanted me to have a hysterectomy at that age, but I kind of said, no, I think there's probably some other things we could do. And so we took some other corrective approaches to kind of do it. But at that point, it was very difficult to, you know, to have my body bounce back as quick because of the adrenal fatigue. And there's not much they can do for that. It's not like there's medicine or there's things, you know, Western medicine type of things that you can do to kind of say, oh yeah, you know, they'll put you on antidepressants or anti-anxiety type of things as a solution, which was not an option for me at all. But it was really diet and exercise and meditation and being really present with my emotions. All of that played a role in helping me to kind of get back to a more healthy lifestyle and everything. So
good for you.
tell us a little bit more then, getting your juicy back is
Okay.
also not having cortisol in your system, but what do we want?
Well, I have two different things that I like to share on general directions. One of them is that, and I'm also going to just add something else here, because we mentioned the blood types, and some of the blood types are much more prone to overproduce cortisol than others. So when I work with individuals, we can really tailor things very, very specific.
Interesting.
It's another good tip. And the different blood types actually discharge stress and stress hormones differently. So again, the whole idea of bioindividuality can be so important. But to answer this kind of for everybody, one of the pieces of good news is that there's another hormone. It's called oxytocin. And oxytocin is often described as the love hormone. It's one that women produce much more than men. And oxytocin antidotes cortisol. And stimulated, we produce it. We're encouraged to produce it, physically, anytime that we are doing or experiencing anything pleasurable. To me, this was the best piece of news I ever came across, because, we live in a world, I grew up on, no pain, no gain. And that works pretty well for men's physiology. It's not the way women are built. We're actually built on pleasure. And what I'm speaking of a whole continuum, from just hanging out with our girlfriends. Just hanging out with our girlfriends increases oxytocin production. So, when I invite women to my events, just being in the room is going to make you more healthy and happy. Just hanging out with other women at one end of the spectrum. And then, dancing and singing, hugging and kissing, and obviously, sexual expression and orgasm, produce a lot of oxytocin. Some of the other things that do, probably less relevant for my audience, but childbirth and breastfeeding.
Yes.
And that's what that bonding happens. But for us later in life, anything that's pleasurable increases oxytocin and reduces cortisol. So my whole platform about Get Your Juicy Back is about really encouraging a pleasure-based life. And in general, I think that should be a very welcome message to a lot of women that are still feeling guilty about taking care of themselves and doing things that they enjoy. So I really want to make that message that it's not frivolous. It's probably the most important thing you can do for your health and well-being, and your ability to be there for the people that you love, is to give yourself as much pleasure as possible. And that can be an Epsom salt bath. It can be almost anything that we consider to be enjoyable. So I think that's awesomely good news.
That is very, very good news. So oxytocin is the love hormone. Anything pleasurable is going to support in the production of that. And it's also the antidote for cortisol. So when we're stressed, you got to get out of that. You got to get out of it fast and go to your happy place or pleasure place, or do something that is going to make you feel good in that moment. Your favorite song. I don't care what it is, right? Are these all solutions?
I do have a little tip, and I
want to hear it.
But sometimes when we're really off, because we've all been there, it's sometimes even hard to think about doing stuff. So one of the quickest ways of reducing cortisol, and I have doctors and practitioners that are backing me up on this, and probably there are members of your audience that are familiar. There's a yogic breathing technique called alternate nostril breathing. It looks a little funny. On my website, again, that offer that I made a little earlier, I have a free download of some of these tips, and I have a little video demo of this alternate nostril breathing technique.
Oh,
A few minutes of that is one of the most effective things in the immediate moment of reducing our cortisol when, times that we feel that that's raging. So that's a tip that I really like to make, because sometimes we need something just in the moment, that's easier than calling a girlfriend
and physical, so that you're in action of doing it, not mentally or emotionally up here.
Well, all of the above, actually.
Yeah.
It's a meditative process. Anytime
it will get you there.
Breathing.
Physical
and
something to be able
synchronizes the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. It is the single most effective action that I think we can take. So
that's awesome. Perfect.
To share that tip. And then The other area that you and I were chatting about a little earlier that in the last year or so was introduced to me as another amazing support. And this is a little new to some of us. I could speak all day about it, but I'm happy to say that hemp-based CBD was descheduled and is now legal throughout the United States.
Perfect. Well, hold that thought right there because we're going to take a break. And then I want to, in our next segment, talk about how this hemp cannabis and define some of that for us, because it is confusing, yet there's an enormous amount of press on it right now. And I feel like you definitely have done your homework, Susan, to be able to be an expert contributor to what we need to know, especially for this tribe of women that you're talking about, women over 50. So
stay back and we'll share about that with you.
Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back, and Susan is going to be able to share with us more tips and more opportunities for us to get our juicy back, and accessible ways, easy ways, it sounds like, that we can do this. Yep. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Okay. Hey everybody, welcome back to Beauty Inside and Out. We're having a great conversation. It's a very juicy conversation. My guest is Susan Joyce, and she has an MBA. She is a previous VP of a bank, but really went down a very, very definite and purposeful track of catering to wellness, Ayurvedic training, and to her tribe of women over 50. And all of the changes and that we go through, but mainly to be able to make sure that we are living a very vital life that has an incredible life force. And she shared with us some really interesting information about cortisol in our first segment here. And we're now going to continue to keep talking about some of the antidotes to that. But one of the things that I wanted to touch on as part of your bio and some of your credentials here is that you do a lot of contributing, speaking, lifestyle. You've been serving what we call the silver generation, which I love. I love that. There's a lot of us that are in that baby boomer category, and we're a huge span of age in there. So that silver generation is a part of that. And you're one of the producers of what you called, and it sounds like you just had one of these events, a cannabis wellness retreat. So I know we're going to talk about CBD, hemp, cannabis, and I think all those things are somewhat in the same conversation, and maybe you can help us define those three.
Yeah, I'd like to, because there's a lot of confusion, and
there's a lot. Yeah.
And I'm impressed with how succinct we've been able to be today, so I'm gonna keep going with that. We're in a very interesting time in the world that we're ending almost 100 years of prohibition against a plant that has historically been a major healing plant in the world.
That's so crazy.
Don't know about that, around the time of the Civil War, almost half the prescriptions that were written in the United States were for some cannabis product. It was traditionally the menopause treatment. It's a plant that there's a whole lot of financial and political and racial reasons that it started being demonized, almost 100 years ago. But the truth is finally coming out, and there's been a tremendous amount of medical research that's come out of Israel specifically. One of the things that we've learned in the past couple of years in this part of the world is that human beings, as mammals, we actually have an endocannabinoid system. The same way that we have an endocrine system and a respiratory system, we actually have receptors throughout the body, the human body, for what are called cannabinoids, the active components of the cannabis plant. We actually make them in the body. They're endocannabinoids.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Who knew? Now, cannabis, which has been called marijuana, which I almost think of as like its slave name. So I don't really use that word, because cannabis is a healing plant. And that's the way I want us to be thinking about this, as many of us are learning to overcome the stigma of that whole reefer madness thing that, a lot of us.
Yeah.
And there are a number of different cannabinoids. One of them is called THC, and that's the one that has a psychoactive effect that people have been smoking recreationally for a long time. And many people don't know that there's anything else to the plant than that. But it turns out that THC is just one cannabinoid. It's the only one that has that psychoactive effect. And there's many other active compounds that are very valuable medicine.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other major cannabinoids is called CBD. And at this point, I know people have been hearing about it because now it's everywhere.
Yeah.
A year ago, my mom had eye surgery and I insisted on getting her some drops. It was a very edgy thing to do. Now her doctor's selling it. So I want people to have a little bit of understanding about some of these terms, that there is this plant called cannabis that has a few different varieties. One of them is called hemp. Hemp is an industrial product, and hemp only has up to 0.3% THC. So there's no way of using hemp to get high, but hemp can be very rich in CBD. And in the last few years, and especially in the last year, I live in Florida, the state of Florida, and we have a medical cannabis program for people who have serious conditions that can be treated with that. But as I said a few minutes ago, as of December, hemp-based CBD was descheduled by the government. It's no longer illegal, and it's widely available. And one of the amazing things about CBD, now we're going to come back to our cortisol conversation. As you were commenting, Bonnie, I've really taken a pioneering role in educating women about the plant and about its benefits for women's health. Female plant, it's a gift for us. And the endocannabinoid system is the major homeostatic system in the body to create balance, and it directly regulates estrogen. So a lot of these hormonal issues that we've been speaking about, CBD actually supports the body in creating that kind of balance. And as you mentioned, I've produced this year a couple of big events for women to help educate them, brought in doctors and lawyers and CBD company owners and just amazing women that are also pioneers in this industry. And I've done these events in beautiful upscale here in Florida, because we're very much about overcoming the stigma and changing the image. This isn't a backdoor thing. This is a, very classy, beautiful thing that we're doing. And I've been one of the speakers at these events, and I've been speaking about, cannabis and CBD for women's wellness and hormone balance and sexual health. And what I shared when I spoke about this recently was I had been saying for a while that one of the benefits of CBD is that it reduces cortisol production to our conversation. But I realized that the truth is even better than that. Because some of the other strategies we were speaking about, increasing oxytocin and doing the alternate nostril breathing, and those are wonderful. Those are about reducing the cortisol that we've already produced.
True.
Experienced. Because I have been, of course, obviously using CBD for a while, and you and I shared, before we went live, you and I both had some very stressful things going on in our lives over the past few months. And people kept asking me how I was, and I kept saying, I'm grateful for CBD. Because what I experienced on, my physiology is that, and knowing what I know about the endocannabinoid system and how it regulates, balances the other systems, what I noticed, and it was validated by the research that I've done, is that CBD regularly was helping my system balance itself under conditions of stress so much more effectively that I was feeling that the cortisol thing wasn't even kicking in. So I would say, prevention is worth a pound of cure. I still do my alternate nostril breathing. I still cultivate pleasure. I'll always do those things. And I've been appreciating that some of the choices I've made, specifically, taking advantage of the availability now of, and I have organic CBD that's been produced by a company that has a third-party lab report on their website. That's very, very important because there's a lot of poor quality and out there. So I have to say that when I'm talking about CBD, I'm talking organic, lab tested. I have to make that point. In taking advantage of the availability of these products, I felt myself functioning so much more efficiently in handling stress that I was aware of the absence of cortisol. Now that is remarkable for, in this conversation that you and I are having, and I'm impressed that we covered as much ground as we did. And actually, let me ask you, how does that sound to you? Is that not truly exciting?
Oh yeah, and let me ask you this: how when you say taking CBD, are you saying that you're taking it kind of in a drop format, or like how do you take CBD?
Thank you. That's a very good question because there are many different delivery methods. And in fact, I was doing some research this week, and I learned that in 2018, cannabis use among women in the United States almost doubled, and it was almost all CBD, because women are more wellness oriented.
Yes.
And CBD having come on the scene, suddenly very, very powerfully, many women are seeking this out, mostly for sleep, also for dealing with pain and inflammation. And one of the reasons, I know you asked me a question earlier, like sort of what motivated me, I'm always looking for natural solutions. And with cannabis in particular, and I don't deal with this much in my practice, I have to say, because I don't go beyond my scope of practice and I'm not a doctor. So this is all education. But I know that many people have been able to get off opioids, which we know are killing people.
Oh, yeah.
Working with doctors that are able to treat them with medical cannabis and CBD. So if there were no other benefits, I would consider that to be a good enough reason for us to be opening our minds and finding, qualified, responsible care in this area. Fortunately, that's not something that I've been dealing with, but just from wellness and prevention. And this kind of comes full circle for the conversation you and I are having today, Bonnie. CBD and supporting the endocannabinoid system in achieving a higher level of balance is directly addressing that inner stuff that you and I know is important. That inner alignment that gets reflected outwardly in our appearance and our beauty. But it really is an inner game. And I'm incredibly grateful that, in the course of my life, I've evolved from, somebody that was sitting at a desk, dealing with pension funds, to somebody who's, has an opportunity to really delve into and share this kind of information with women. As I said, that was my big why.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
This amazing tribe. And I'll just maybe go a little bit further and say that, in my view, in addition to all of our skills and experiences and training, we all have superpowers of things that are like kind of intrinsic to us that make us who we are. And I would say that two of my superpowers are I collect amazing people, and I seem to have a knack for identifying sometimes if there's a party that wants to happen, and I'm the one that sends the invitation. So in putting together these retreats and
nice
platform, and I'm assuming that in your work, this is also something that resonates for you.
Absolutely.
Women together, again, for oxytocin production, but there's a way that women nourish each other by being together. And, there's that expression, takes a village. And I'm really proud to be part of a village of, women like us that are seeking to share and support each other in the ways that we do, because we are making a tremendous impact in the world.
And we have to continue to keep making an impact in the world and have that voice, and not be afraid to have that voice, but have that voice because it's the right thing to do and to be supporting each other. And
personally, and, when I was at this event that I produced recently, and I was speaking that day about cannabis and women's sexuality, I was saying to myself, who would have thought that I was going to ever get that cannabis and sexuality? I mean, like, I feel like I've won the game of life.
Yeah, I don't think any of us grew up thinking that we'd be educating or sharing information on cannabis.
Nope.
Yeah,
And
so
it's been very fulfilling.
because it's becoming a very popular conversation and topic, and you're seeing, you know, traces of it in products coming out right and left and everything, what recommendations can you provide for us other than organic and
Well, I realize I didn't answer your question about the delivery methods. I'm going to back up because I'd like to both. So yes, I've been taking what's called a tincture, which is drops under the tongue.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
the very good ways of ingesting it, and it's fairly immediate in its effects. But there are other ways that CBD can be used. So I want to mention a couple of those because they have some really important implications. They can be used topically. So women who are using them for pain, we mentioned that very, very important application. There are patches that can be used topically that go directly into the bloodstream. And for some things, that's a more appropriate way to use it. There are using salves that are laced with CBD that can be applied directly. I've been giving those to my mom who has arthritis and other aches and pains. There are products for personal care. There are CBD infused Epsom salts and bath bombs and things like that. There's CBD infused skin
skincare
and sun care products. That one of the things that excites me about that is that they are a wonderful alternative to toxic endocrine, disrupting products that actually mess with our hormones. There's sexual enhancement products, CBD infused.
I saw those at the show I was just at.
And the one that I've been using, I've had a very, very good experience with.
Yeah.
So that's available. There's they can come in capsules for medicinal use as well. Some people like edibles, gummies and things like that, which those are very good for sleep because they can last longer, but they take a longer time to take effect.
Oh, okay.
Depending on what we're using them for, and what our lifestyle is, there's many, many things available these days that I would never have expected before. And one of the things that I have an opportunity to do is provide this kind of education, not just the information that I have now, but bringing in, women who, wonderful doctors and women who have started companies that have wonderful products. So I have a meetup group that I run here. I have these larger retreats and events that I've been producing, and I'm going to be continuing to do that.
Oh, that is fantastic. Yeah. So, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, when we're talking about, getting your juicy back, it's really for us to be able to have a pleasurable life and less stress, less pain, less inflammation. Because if we look at a typical lifestyle today, stress is high. We're eating and doing and drinking the wrong things that are creating inflammation in our body. And then that takes us away from pleasurable moments.
Exactly. So when you describe it that way, Bonnie, doesn't it sound easy?
Yes, it does.
Like the potential to have a good life is so much easier than we were told. And it's not a medicine chest full of stuff.
No, and it's concerning because in America, we still, we really do gravitate towards a lot of those commercials that are, for whatever reason, they still allow them on TV, all of those drugs that they are producing to be able to fix one thing after another, after another, after another. And if you sit around and watch daytime TV, you pretty much can create all of the symptoms of all of those meds that are supposed to help you.
Exactly.
And be like, oh gosh, do I have that? Do I need to check with my doctor? So, we are in a transformation of saying we've got to get back to wellness. We've got to get back to some of the basic things,
exactly.
The old wives' tales and the old medicine man approach, right? Because they had truth back then. And you're right, the prohibition of it, I'd never even thought about it that way when you mentioned that. We've been denying this. I mean, well, listen, it hasn't been denied. It's been an illegal drug from the, from the marijuana or the THC standpoint for many years, because it has made people feel better or feel, removed from whatever's going on.
And, I was one of those people that really didn't know until the last couple of years about how powerful the medicine is.
Yeah.
And one of my messages is that from a wellness perspective, it's all about CBD. Here in Florida, as I mentioned, we have a medical program, and I'm always very proud to say that I'm not eligible because I'm in excellent health. So I'm really very happy that I'm not eligible for the medical program.
Eligible, yeah.
But I'm very relieved to have CBD available and to be educating, women and men, about it, because it is so much safer than almost anything that we have available to be addressing any of these things. And again, it comes back to that systemic aligning with the life force, because that endocannabinoid system is something that, we have available to us to work with. And
that's so interesting. Now
that's it all, all of these things do get expressed, frankly, in outer beauty, because when we have less cortisol and we're less stressed and we're more balanced, it shows outwardly. And to me, it's beauty. So that we've kind of come full circle probably today in our conversation.
Yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense. And listen, stress, we know, is, it's going to lead to heart disease. It's going to lead to cancer. And those are the things that so many people at a younger age than deserving are having to face and are having to deal with. And we all know somebody that is falling into that particular category. So we have to start taking some initiative to be able to do that. And I think really at this point, there's a lot of self-education we can do, like attending your event or going onto your website and just getting some ideas. We have to start being, taking more of that initiative. And then even if people are still going to doctors and doing more of that traditional route, ask more questions, get more involved in your healthcare, get more involved in why you're taking certain things and what are some alternatives to be able to get off those things that you might be on, because any of that is not keeping our system, in that.
And in fact, Bonnie, let me just mention, and I know I've plugged myself a few times, but I'm a valuable resource, and I want to make myself available.
Yeah.
On my website, there's also an opportunity. I offer a complimentary get acquainted call. So if any of your audience is finding, any of this to be personally interesting and would like to connect with me personally, I do have that available.
Yeah, well, let's share some of that information now. How can they find you, Susan?
I'm going to say my website is the best place, and it's getyourjuicyback.com. It's kind of easy to remember. There's contact form there. There's the free download, as I mentioned, with some of these tips that we spoke about. And on the contact page, there is a place to make an appointment for a complimentary chat. So those are my best offers right now.
Perfect, yeah. And then in regards, is there some connections on your website as well for some recommendations of CBD type products, or?
I'm happy to chat with people, and there are a couple of excellent brands that I make available. The legal situation is still interesting in this country, even though CBD is technically legal. I have colleagues that have had issues offering things on their websites with financial.
Yes.
So I don't have a full marketplace available there yet in that way.
Yes, no, that makes sense. And
that's the reality of where things are right now.
Yes, I think state to state, I think from even a shipping standpoint, there are still some inconsistencies, we'll say.
That's a good way to describe it.
In regards to this. So the most important thing then would be is to get educated on Susan's website, or set up a call with her to be able to maybe get some further coaching and information that might be specific to helping your needs and your concerns with that. And
the retreat that we had, I was with some women today at the luncheon before we got together who attended the retreat, and I'm just still hearing such excitement about this, because we've really never been able to come together before around this. So I'm going to be offering programs probably all over the country and all over the world, where we are going to get together to learn and experience things together. So I am very much looking forward to building a community of women that want that safe environment where they can learn about this.
Oh, that's perfect. And please make sure you can post on Beauty Inside and Out, our group
Thank
page.
you.
It's
I
not going to go
definitely will do that.
instant. I have somebody that's managing the content, of course.
Thank you.
So
Appreciate
they'll
it.
approve it, but any of your events, any information that you think would be insightful, please do share that to the Beauty Inside and Out show group Facebook page. Would be really helpful because we have to continue to get the right kind of education out there, and spread the word a little bit more, because I think it's getting confusing and it's getting diluted at the same time with the way that it's coming out and the questions.
Right. And I want to make a plug for a wonderful organization that's a national women's cannabis wellness education network, and it's called Elementa, ELLEMENTA, and they hold monthly gatherings all over the country. I was holding one of those gatherings here in Florida. And,
Elementa?
Elementa. So if women, part of your audience, are looking to learn more, I would encourage them to go on that site and see if there might be a monthly group in their area.
Interesting, yeah.
I'm now conducting my own through Meetup because I'm running my own programs. But Elementa is a wonderful organization, and it could be another way for your audience to plug in.
Oh, that's fantastic. Perfect.
Make sure to share about that.
I'll make sure that I post that too as well when we go live with this. So thank you so much for your time. Again, it's juicyback.com is where you can find Susan Joyce and her education, her information, and really catering to ladies having the most empowering and vital life force available to them. And let's look for more ways to be natural. Let's look for more opportunities to be healthy, and let's look for more opportunities to share the success and the wealth of women to women.
And I guess what I'd like to say to that is beautiful.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. So you guys stay with us as we kind of work our way into September. I have a co-host with me. Her name is Gloria Coppola, who, Susan, this is the person I want to connect you with. She's also in Florida too.
Oh,
so
wonderful.
I think it's going to be a beautiful connection for all of us. But Gloria Coppola, she's been in the wellness industry. She's got a lot of a similar background to what Susan has here. And she's going to be co-hosting, and we're going to be talking about wellness. We're going to be taking down that path of how to be able to reduce the anxiety that we're living with in our life. And we're going to have a 30-day challenge that's going to take place. And it's going to be a 30-day challenge of not only finding your purpose, but living your purpose. Because I think Susan kind of summed it up for us today. You know, here she was a VP of a bank, and so she has found her purpose. And I know a lot of us are out there, we're reaching that age, we're like, this is it, what do we do, what's my life supposed to do? So we're going to help you also to define what your purpose is, and to be able to take that path of living your life fully with that purpose. So do join us for all of September, and then stay tuned, because Beauty Inside and Out is going through a branding transition. We're going to be transforming into talking a little bit more about successful brands, not just in the beauty industry, but kind of across the board, how people have found that purpose and that positioning to be able to have them develop a successful product, service, program, whatever it is that you're doing. I'm going to have some experts on the show that are going to help us all to be able to refine our brand, clarify our message, and get the word out so that we can continue doing the good work that we're doing. So as always, stay with us, and thank you so much for being listeners. You guys can find me on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, many other syndicated shows, and of course my host, which is Voice America here. And remember to always be you in beauty. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.